największym festiwalu społecznym Europy.
Polityka w demokratycznym państwie, polityka i demokracja jest jednym z najważniejszych, najsilniejszych narzędzi wpływania na świat i należy ją wziąć w swoje ręce po prostu.
And I will be never tired to say
I ja
1000 times.
zawsze będę to powtarzał. Dziękuję po raz tysięczny i po raz kolejny. Dziękuję wszystkim, którzy pomagają Ukrainie, którzy wspierają Ukrainę.
Moją emocją w sumie jest taka radość, że mamy tak dużo młodych ludzi angażujących się.
Od rana do nocy praktycznie jest co robić i dużo się uczę i motywuje mnie to, że naprawdę jest szansa wywalczyć lepszą Polskę.
Świetnie widzieć jest ludzi w moim wieku, którzy się angażują w wiele rzeczy i faktycznie widać te zmiany.
Bardzo podoba mi się to, że faktycznie jest tutaj duża różnorodność. Bardzo podoba mi się to, że są osoby z bardzo różnych opcji politycznych.
Dzisiaj z nami są po raz pierwszy liderzy lewicy. To jest właśnie Kampus Polska Przyszłości. Mamy bardzo różne poglądy tutaj na widowni. Jest możliwość skonfrontowania tych poglądów z tymi wszystkimi, którzy dzisiaj w Polsce walczą o demokrację, niezależnie od tego, z jakiej części sceny politycznej pochodzą.
Przede wszystkim takie poczucie wspólnoty.
Atmosfera otwartości, debaty, brak tak jakby oceniania. Ludzie są naprawdę otwarci na czyjeś zdanie.
Nie ma lepszego sposobu na to, żeby lato spędzić niż tydzień na kampusie.
Bardzo podoba mi się ogólna atmosfera akceptacji, otwartości.
To nastawienie na to, że jesteśmy przyjaźni względem siebie i możemy porozmawiać o wszystkich tematach, nawet jeśli się w nich różnimy.
Demokracja to jest bardzo trudna i wymagająca uprawa. Ona wymaga pieczołowitości, a w chwilach zagrożenia także waleczności tych, którzy w demokracji widzą wartość. Demokracja sama się nie obroni.
Rafał, I want to say gratulacje.
Rafał, gratulacje. Gratulacje za to, że to wydarzenie się odbywa. To jest coś niesamowitego. Mój ojciec Zbigniew Brzeziński byłby zachwycony.
Taka nadzieja na przyszłość, bo gdy widzę nas tutaj wszystkich młodych, ale też starszych, z różnych środowisk, z różnych części Polski, to widzę, że wspólnie naprawdę mamy siłę zmienić przyszłość tego kraju i możemy zawalczyć o to, żeby wszystkim nam żyło się lepiej.
Dzień dobry Państwu.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Serdecznie dziękujemy.
Thank you very much for inviting me to this great event, the Freedom Games. Thank you very much for deciding to spend the time with us, to spend it with Campus on Tour. This is just a small team that represents the campus: Oliwia, Sebastian, Antonina, and Barbara. I can see some volunteers, Adam. I can see some speakers. So there is quite a big representation of the campus we represent today, but we would like to say hello, to extend our greetings from Rafał Trzaskowski, who is on tour and who is fighting for better Poland, from Aga Pomaska, who is taking part in another panel, and from Sławek Nitras. Hello from them. Best wishes from them. Of course, this meeting will be held under the campus format, so there will be a discussion with the audience. But first, we would like to tell you what campus is and what it provides us. We will be talking about the perspective of the organizers, participants, everyone who takes part, who takes part in the campus. To me, a campus is not the biggest event of this type in Europe or in the world. It's not just the area for discussion, great atmosphere, fantastic dialogues, and great events. Campus is an idea. The idea of true debate about the future of Poland and Europe, to improve the situation better, to restore the values that are missing from Poland now. So we want to have the actual discussion on the real problems, discussions of people who will develop the future of Poland. So it is mainly addressed to the generation that in 5, 10, 15 or 12, 20 years will decide about the shape of Poland. So when we are considering the politics, the present politics, well, it's hopeless. There is no discussion about real issues. People just argue, fight. They do nothing. They talk about nothing. And during the week in Olsztyn, during the campus, 1,200 participants, 500 speakers and 500 guests discussed the most important affairs. They were discussing about the shape of Poland and Europe. There are millions of ideas, shares very specific solutions are presented. And the philosophy of the future of Poland is changing. I would like to also tell you about my perspective. I have been involved in campus from the very beginning of this event. I'm also an active politician. But I have learned a lot from campus and the participants. Taking part in the discussions, listening to people, have allowed me to leave the role of a politician, to leave the world of politics. I could see in real life what it can look like, what it will look like. Campus is the idea that operates under this formula, and we will continue campus. We will develop this initiative to make sure that Polish politics should take the form of campus, like this place you could see in the video. Good morning. I'm very happy to see you. Adam has already mentioned Agnieszka Pomaska. She really asked us to apologize for her absence from this panel. She is taking part in the panel on in vitro, but we are trying to improve our competences thanks to young people. So if there are some skills that you can be in two places, please share this idea. So I would like to tell you about the original idea of the campus. So initially these were the people who were involved in politics, politicians. We are all quite young politicians when we look at the perspective of Polish politics, and we decided that we miss a forum, a normal debate that would cover just simple things. We also decided that we lack some space for young people who could take part in politics, not becoming politicians, not to build any relations with the world of politics. Currently, if you were an active young person who was involved in politics, you had to become an assistant to a politician, so you had to be involved in the political system, which is not that bad, but it's rather not too open. So we decided that we were missing a space where we could meet with young people who are thinking about politics, about social lives. They would like to become involved and committed, but they wouldn't like to make any attachments. It's different when you live in a big city. There are lots of groups, parties, but it's different if you come from a small town or village. And the greatest inspiration was the presidential campaign of Rafał Trzaskowski in 2020. And Rafał was inspired. He noticed that during the political meetings, there were crowds of young people, and they were telling Rafał that they wanted to become involved, they would like to trust someone, but they also told him that there is no space to have such discussions, and they also told him that they are not listened. So we decided to meet these expectations, and after brainstorming we developed Campus Polska, which is developing year by year. The first campus in 2021, there were 1,000 participants. Everyone who was invited as a participant or guest, they didn't quite know what it was all going to be about. Young people told us that we were trying to talk them into becoming politicians, and of course we didn't want to do it. We just wanted to listen. We just wanted to listen to them, and the speakers told us that well, it's a conference and people are giving us rounds of applause. So we decided that many politicians who had to keep time discipline, they also had to face young people who were not always keen giving them round of applause. They wanted to ask questions. So our objective was that we should become open to all democratic circles. Adam and I are politicians. Adam is the head of a political party. I am a head of political party. Rafał Trzaskowski is the head of another political party. Agnieszka Pomaska is involved in the party that is chaired by Rafał Trzaskowski. So we decided to hide our political ambitions and to invite everyone. So this year, during the third edition of Campus, we had all leaders of all voting committees. So we invite young people. Of course, they are recruited. They are selected, and we never ask them whether they belong to any parties. Of course, they can declare that they already are party members, but we do not ask such questions. Some people tell us, some young people tell us, I was voting for Confederation. Another person said, well, I am a lefty. I am even for radical left wing. So after 3 years of the campus organization, this year we had over 300 speakers, 1,500 participants. We had guests, representatives of local governments, regional governments. People wanted to hear what the speakers had to say. They also wanted to see how to organize such an inclusive debate where young people are more important than politicians. And now it's a very difficult election year, but we managed to organize an event where we didn't encourage people to join any parties. We just had nice discussions, and after the 3-year experience, we've got a group of young people for whom we have opened the door. So very specific panelists have been invited. There are also three young people who will speak, and they have always been with us. I have met with Oliwia during the first campus. She was a participant, and now she's a voluntary. Sebastian Kościelnik, you know him as a driver. He drives Cinquecento, this famous Cinquecento. He had this collision with the state of Poland, and we also met him as a participant of campus. We didn't check who is who, but we have all of a sudden this scene noticed that the driver who had a collision with Beata Szydło's car was our participant, and Beata is another voluntary, and there is one common element. They are all taking part in the elections. They are the candidates, so they felt strength. They have met young people, and they gained this courage to become politician, and our task was to open the door for them, to show that young people are not equally important, not only equally important, maybe they are more important to the future of Poland. Ada, so I will ask them to tell us about their experience, and I would like to tell you that the year 2023 is a special year. It's the election year, and And we hope that Campus 24 will be greater, will be more interesting, and there will be more people who are for democracy. So we have told you what campus is to us. It's much more than just an event in Olsztyn. A moment ago, when we were watching the video, when we heard the signal, the campus signal, we all had goose pimples because it's very important to us. We've got 3 young people who are the candidates to become MPs. And together with Barbara, we told them what campus meant for us, what it gave us. And Antonina, did you take you were the campus participant from the very beginning. So once you attend the campus, you want to come back. So the teams are great, and you want to be you want to take part in campus again. So what did campus give you? What does it mean to you? So first of all, if I were to describe campus with one word, it will be the word we've heard in the video. One of the participants said it's the community. That's the word. So I went to campus in a very specific situation. I was eligible to become the participant, but I was already a young politician. I was a councillor for Łódź Regional Parliament. I did it for the 3 years, so my role in the campus was a little bit mixed. So on the one hand, I was a friend, I was a participant, I was someone who was singing during the concerts, but on the other hand, I was a panelist. I was someone who was becoming involved organizationally in the event. So campus gives an enormous strength to young people who have already become involved, who are activists or young politicians. This is incredible. Being a part of this public, political and social zone sometimes can be quite difficult. And campus is the place where you just charge your batteries. The greatest magic takes part during the workshops and panels, but in the margins between the workshops and panels, the magic is the greatest. So this is when we can speak to people whom, for example, we follow in Instagram. So all of a sudden, you find yourself in a very moving situation. So last year, a girl approached me and she said that for quite a while she has been observing me on Instagram, and she has noticed that you can be a politician being quite young, and she decided that she would like to take part in the election, being the candidate to the MP, and it was very moving to me. I will always remember this, and when I am in difficult situations, political situations, I know why I do this. I do all these things to go to the next edition of campus, to meet with the friends, to meet young people. So last year there was another very important thing during campus to me. So there was a film workshop, and my friend from Różnorodni, the Diverse Ones Foundation, she approached me and she involved me. She asked me to take part in a very moving video about people with autism, with ADHD, and this video, this ad became very popular, and it was a turning point for me. So I became an ambassador who can speak about such difficult topics. So it was a very important moment during the campus. I always feel as if I was in Facebook when I am taking part in campus, because everybody is my friend. So there are people from Poland and from abroad. Julia from Vienna is coming. We meet just once a year with Julia during the campus, so we can share experience there. So it's a beautiful space space where you can also feel relaxed. There is no political tension which always takes place during conventions. It is required of us to operate in the dynamics that can seem artificial to young people. So we are talking about very important things during campus. We can learn, but there's always space to share support, to learn, and also to tell someone that something is not quite to our liking. So this is the most important event in Poland. That is also true. Sebastian, now I would like to ask you a question. I think that 6 or 7 years ago you were not that much involved in politics. Absolutely not. So it's a good example. So when someone says that they are not interested in politics, Sebastian is an example of a person who can become interested in politics in very difficult circumstances. So you had this difficult situation, but you decided to oppose this difficult situation, and you became involved in the public affairs, and you decided to take part in campus. I think last year was your first campus. That's right. So I remember a situation. We hand out tickets to the participants, and I received an information that I'm going to meet Sebastian at Plac Wolności, and this is where you are going to give him the ticket to take part in campus. And then I discovered that this is the Sebastian I know, Sebastian who collided with the Law and Justice Party country. So tell us about the process of you becoming involved in social and political life, and how campus has impacted your perception of the world. Did it provide you with some opportunities?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. In 2017, I have not been interested in politics whatsoever. I was just attending elections in order to fulfill my duty as a citizen, but I haven't been much in favor of any one of the sides. I just thought it's worth to use the right of voting. But as of the time that Adam mentioned, politics collided with me, and this whole power side has collided with me. Until then, I have not been even thinking of getting engaged politically. Back then, it was a very difficult time to me. I've had monthly meetings in the courts and in the Internal Affairs Office, and there was a lot of things going on during the criminal proceeding. But I have obtained an offer to take part in a convention of Marszałek Kidawa-Błońska and to present my history. It was one of the first turning points when I understood that the whole situation that I went through was the moment that the table turned around for me to change something in the country, to change something in my life, not to only attend elections to fulfill my citizen duty, but to actually make a change in our country. So coming back to campus. Nie słyszę go.
As Andrzej has mentioned, it was quite a coincidence that I decided to go to campus. I just saw an ad, and then I said to myself, okay, why not? It's worth trying. I also knew people who took part in the first edition, and when I went to campus last year, it was like a signal for me that I should become more politically involved, that I should start changing things, that I should act. So it was a result of this openness I have experienced. So there were lots of speakers, people from all over the world, and you could just approach them, you could speak with them, you can ask questions during the panels, and you could hear answers.
Dlatego też kampus.
This is why the first campus was a time when I
To jest chyba ta droga.
have decided this is the right path. I started to study law, well, because of the accident too. After the 3 years of being a practitioner, I've decided it's high time to learn the theory too. So coming back to the campus,
Poznałem tam naprawdę mnóstwo świetnych ludzi.
I've met plenty of wonderful people who I'm still in touch with, and they are all the time supporting me.
W tym roku, gdy pojawiłem się na kampusie,
This year, when I showed up on the campus, I've had several conversations with people who somewhere on the way had some similar difficulties as mine. And I met Patrick, who said, as I quote,
na drodze była zwykła kolizja.
there was a collision on the road. He had an accident, but the person who was taken to the hospital
Wiedział, że
was at fault. He knew he is not the one who was at fault. It was in the night, and he told me that it's worth to decide that I'm not giving up. He could have given up. He could have decided that he's simply going to pay the fine, but he opposed, thanks to the fact that a year ago he met me, and he knew that I opposed, and it gave him the strength to know that it's worth to believe in yourself, in what you believe in your own values, and to implement them later on. All right, thank you. Oliwia, I remember you from the first campus, and you are the person who has been to the first campus and then engaged to the maximum level in every single thing. You've been voluntary, you've been very much engaged, you've been attending all the campuses. So a campus is a part of your reality, of your life. So right now you are a candidate in the elections. Yes, indeed. Always, when I'm trying to motivate and inspire young people to act, I focus on authenticity. And in the interventions that we've just heard, there is a lot of authenticity. You can see how reliable they are. And I think that my history is very clearly showing how the idea of campus transposed to my personal life, to my history, and to where I am right now in my life. I'm trying to always show by my example that there is no such thing as impossible things. Probably just as my phone speaker, if you asked me 4 years ago whether I'm interested in politics, I would say, yeah, but I wouldn't say it out loud in front of my peers, because as you said, Adam, politics are very pejorative to most of people, and we have a huge polarization of the society in Poland. The hate speech causes the fact that when we speak of politics, we feel uncomfortable. We want to avoid conflicts. We want to avoid divisions. So we are simply avoiding the topic too. And then the campus comes up after the campaign of Rafał Trzaskowski. I saw how huge the energy is and mobilization of people is. I came there being curious for the first time. I've always been curious of the world. I've always enjoyed learning, so I wanted to meet new people to gain experience. And the first thing that inspired me a lot was the atmosphere, was the fact that when you sit at home and watch TV, you see serious politicians who are wearing suits and speaking in a pathetic way, and we cannot see a human being in them. And then you show up to the campus and you can talk to a politician, drinking coffee with him while he's taking a walk around, and to have just loose conversations during the panels. And I think that this showed me that there are people in the politics, there are people who have their fears, there are people who have their worries, there are people who have worries, inspirations and dreams. So besides for politicians, the campus to me is a place where people are coming from different environments. There are journalists, artists, there are concerts. In the morning we can discuss politics, and then in the evening we can have fun on a silent disco. So to continue my story, after the first edition I felt very much inspired. There was a lot of great people and an amazing spirit of the event. This is why I've decided to initiate a project which I've had on my mind already for quite some time, and I called it We Are Not Too Young. So this was meant to fight discrimination of young people because of age, and I started implementing this idea. This is how, by the next campus, my project was already well known and well recognized, and I've had such a lot of feedback from the young people that we've decided to show up on the campus too and to give the voice to the young people who were under the slogan "Not too young to take the floor." So, of course, we have very limited time, and during one of those Hyde Parks, we've had a discussion, and out of the blue, a jazz concert began next to the panel, and no one minded the music. The participants were still very much engaged in continuing the discussion, and I think this shows very well that it's enough to create the space, to inspire and to show that yes, it's possible, and then we will enter the social life. It's enough to just reach the hand out. So to finish the story of mine, I want to tell you that on the third edition of the campus, my project was already a foundation. We've been to Brussels, to the European Parliament. We were developing. We started having volunteers from all over Poland, and now on the current campus, I'm already a candidate. So it shows the path from the social activity to political activity. That in my case, it has been inspired by the campus, because when you're having social activity, then at one point you're facing a wall and you see that it's not you who's taking decisions. And Rafał Trzaskowski said it during one of the panels: if you want to change politics, then enter politics and change it. And this was the spirit that made me to engage first socially and then politically. And those ideas and my thoughts were aiming to finish the polarization, and we're aiming to simply face the challenges and act. Thank you very much. Oliwia spoke about the discussion during a jazz concert. I remember that during the first campus, after the concert, when there were already some parties, I was walking around the festival terrain and I see that there is a tent filled out of people, 11:30 p.m. and they were discussing about education. There was no moderator. Everyone was sticking to the rules that were simply natural. And I was listening to this discussion for half an hour, and it was incredibly interesting. So as Oliwia said, we need to create the space. And it turns out that young people have great ideas and they know how to discuss. Today, during the event, this place here is the campus, but the rule is that the participants are the most important and the panelists are rather here for the audience. So now we are giving the room to you for the questions. I'm sure there will be questions, there always are. So please raise your hands and we will deliver microphones to you so that you can take the floor. Okay, I see the first hand. Do we have a mic? Yes, it's coming. Good morning, my name is Krzysztof and I have a question to Sebastian. I am older than you, you're a young person, so I want to ask you a question that I wish would never come true. What if, unfortunately, law and justice wins the election? What are your ideas? What to do next? Well, I hope it's never going to come true. Well, this for sure is a very difficult question. We don't even foresee such an option. No one ever won a war being pessimistic. But if we are to imagine such a situation, then there are the European instruments that could verify whether the elections are valid, like it was in 2019 when Pegasus was used to interfere with the elections. So I believe we have the tools to verify whether they really won in a fair way. Okay, next questions, please. But I agree with Oliwia here. Being pessimistic is not going to help us to win the elections. Our biggest strength is to be sure that everything is going to work out, because if not our dream of campus, we wouldn't have made it. And this is an excellent event, so we have to believe in what we do. Hi, my name is Michał. I want to share a fear of mine with you. We will win the elections, and I'm afraid of the Trump's effect. Amongst my close ones, we have very determined and infected people who are unable to understand other way of thinking, other way of looking at the world. What is our idea to how to try to provoke a dialogue, so to encourage people to a dialogue. And another question is, how do you deal with emotions when on a daily basis you see manipulations and lies? Because I cannot stand it. You go first, the participants of campus. Tell us, please, how to bring back the dialogue. Well, I think that the basis is to be aware, and education is the basic pillar. I think that campus is a great example of the fact that it's enough to inspire young people, to show them alternative solutions, and to make them aware of how important public debate is, how important discussions are, how important it is that despite for difference in our political views, we can sit at the same table and work on solutions that will be optimum to all these groups of society. So, as a young representative, I also believe that education... I also have graduated recently, so I really know well that we lack giving more awareness to young people to finish the hate speech and to know how to talk, how to discuss without offending people, without being personal, just to use the argumentation. I wanted to add that when it comes to the people who are most determined and infected, what works with them is showing them effects, showing them results, showing them to which extent the reality in Poland right now is impacting people, to show them with pictures how much money is taken away from us, to what extent more and more social groups are having worse and worse life, how much suffering is caused by the current government. I think this is the only way to have such conversations. Lately we've had such events that we were showing how much more the food costs nowadays, because even if we have beautiful words that are very beautiful to us and we have them deep in our hearts, they are not appealing to everyone, but showing how bad it is right now, it appeals to everyone, I think. I would only like to add that in order to bring back the discussion, the vivid discussion in Poland, and to resign on divisions, we should resign on the public TV, so that people would go out and start discussing rather than just listen to the party talk that they are being fed with. I would like to share with you my experience right now during the conversations with voters. I've heard many times, you don't know history, because Platforma Obywatelska are Germans, so it's very hard to face such arguments, and the media makes it very hard for us to fight this machine. So what we can do is really educate and speak about what is happening and what are the results of what is happening. I think we are dealing all in the same way. we all are hurt by the story about how one side is bad and another is good, and all those lies are touching upon every single one of us, and it doesn't matter whether I am Barbara, the MEP, and whether you are the audience. I think that every single one of us is tired with fake news. Is it easy to deal with it? Of course, if we resign on the contamination, then we will start to decontaminate people. So sometimes we meet people who are simply shaking of anger because they are so indoctrinated, they are so convinced about the lies that they hear about us, about the part of the society that is not law and justice, and they really believe in the in different types of lies, and they're repeating things that they hear on the TV, because the biggest source of disinformation is the TV. Of course, it's also being picked up by the government and by the internet, and this is something that, well, on a daily basis we can deal with it pretty easily. Okay, they are listening to so much hate, to so much aggression, they don't have the time to reflect. I don't blame people for believing in that. After 3 years of being contaminated, if every single one of you who would be forced to watch the public television in Polish, you would start believing that Donald Tusk is only able to speak German and no other languages, because that's the impression you get after watching for longer the public TV. So here we have a very serious question, and I think that the local governments are going to play a big role, because they are showing that this dialogue is possible, that on a local level very often the political views don't matter as much. But when you're all the time pointing in the media that this local government is not good because it's related to Germany, or they want the bad for you, then people, even though they see the good results of local government actions, they are still being hesitant. So what we need is a dialogue, and we need a cooperation. We need to be patient. We need to mutually try to understand one another. We need to understand the sources of the fears, of the anger. It's not only Polish television, but years of deep divisions that were created by both groups. So we have a huge amount of work ahead of us. And I hope, well, I want to underline that we are ready for that. We are ready to begin this difficult dialogue. But with some of the politicians from Law and Justice, we will not be able to do it. Because if they are lying and they are using hate speech, I cannot imagine, for instance, a dialogue with Mejza. It is rather a case for the court than for a dialogue. But people can be talked to. We should be talking to them. If Poland is to be a safe country, and that's what the government also is the underlying, then security is to be a healthy community of people who will be able to oppose enemies, and rather than to be manipulated inside. So I think this is the key for the success in the future.
So this is the biggest crime of the recent years. There are lots of serious issues harmful to Poland, but they will be able to be reversed quite quickly. But when we are talking about this topic, this is the work for years, because people's hearts and minds have been poisoned. And this is the work we have to do together, because we do not want Poland in future to face such situations. So we have to become vaccinated against the populism. And as the speaker said, we need awareness, education, we need to involve people, and also we have to be truthful to exclude propaganda. Next question, please. Sławek Talinowski, hello. Your group is very young, so I've got a question. How to convince young people to vote? That's the first question. How to also convince young people not to vote for Confederation? Well, I have been giving the answer to this question for the last few months, so I feel very prepared to answer this question. The only way, in my opinion, to attract young people, to convince them that they should vote, is to make sure that there are young candidates in the ballots, and they need young people, people who know their problems. You do not want to create the gravity force where you will try to tell young people that they live in a completely wrong reality, because there are politicians who are great people, but they have been politicians for 20 or 30 years. They do not understand, they do not know problems of young people, they do not know how much you have to pay for the rent of an apartment in Łódź. We know these things because this is our life, and this is the only way to change this, to show this. We need to show young people that we want to be with young people, for young people, and also, you know, the heads, the heads of the parties need to make sure that young people are candidates, that they receive support. That we should not be treated as a threat. We should be perceived as an opportunity for attracting young voters. Any other ways that have been tested in the past were not successful. Confederation has used this as their advantage. They have produced young, clever political leaders. Our strength is, just like Oliwia said, we are authentic. We want to have good Poland. We want young Poles to have good life, also good life for females. Confederation doesn't have this view. So young people have to be candidates, and then young people will vote. I completely agree with what Antonina said. I would like to repeat education. There is no civic education in Poland. When we're having some classes at school, we know nothing about political parties, about voting. Some fragments of constitution are covered. There is no space for debate to make young people aware that their vote is very meaningful to change the reality. Our vote matters. So I am very much for civic education. Also, the results of the GCSE exam shows that we need to do more work with it. And another aspect is the atmosphere. And it happens during campus. We meet with politicians there who are not wearing suits. We meet with politicians with whom we can have discussions at the table. So young people learn that the politicians will become their partners for discussion, and I think this is of key importance when you want to involve young people. I completely agree with this speakers. I would like to also mention another aspect. You also have to stress to young people, you have to indicate to them that if they would like to change something, you need to provide them with an example. So, for example, you have to tell them, if you want to pay a smaller rent, you have to go to vote. The government is not doing anything about this. So if you think that your rent is too high, change it on the 15th of October. Confederation, it is a very difficult example, but it's easy to confront it. Most of the programs of their agenda seem to be liberal, full of freedom, but when people ask them specific questions, they say, I don't know. So how can you vote on someone who says he doesn't or she doesn't know? TikTok is very important, so it shows some entertainment contents. So memes include the ideas that are not in line with our values. So you have to make sure that you use the appropriate tools. I would like to ask an additional question. I would like to ask a question to Oliwia and Antonina. You are saying that there have to be young people included in the lists. What has made you to become so involved in politics? Because maybe you will actually tell us about the reason why it's worth becoming involved. So my assumption was that I have no right to complain if I do not become involved. And this is the issue which is most motivating for me. So I can see that I can make the real difference. I can change the life. That I can see that the politics can be changed, and we are the change. So if we don't like politics, we can become politicians to support our values. We were brought up based on the ideas of the European Union. So we know very well what are the challenges for the future. The pandemic has shown that, well, it showed us that we are good at technologies. We were helping senior generations to use internet. So we know the challenges, we know social media, we know the problems with the climate, we deal with the civic society and communication. So I know how to change this. So that's why I needed to become involved. So you can show your own example to inspire young people to go and vote. You need to show them that they will have their representative who is aware of their problems. During the election in 2018, I took part in this election because in which actually before that election I was approaching the local government. I was proposing some solutions, but the officials didn't want to do anything about them. So that's why I decided to do it myself. That was my decision. I will go and do it. There is maybe time for the last question. Yes. Good morning. Engaging young people is very important, but there are fewer and fewer young people, and the older people are the key to win the election. So the question to you, how are you going to recover the older voters? Young people usually do not take part in the election, they do not vote, but older people vote. So how to recover them? First of all, we are going to mobilize young people to take part in the election, just like Oliwia, Antonina and Sebastian said. This is the diagnosis based on the research. Young people don't vote because they do not feel they've got someone to vote for, and they don't think that their votes are important. So we need to call them, we need to invite them to democracy. Of course, there are fewer young people. We have some recipes for that. In parallel, there is a parallel on in vitro. We also will be talking about education, freedom, but this is a long-term plan. When we're looking at the short-term one, so the plan for the 15th of October, the first agenda is addressed to everyone, including older generation. We are fully aware of the fact that there are people who just watch the public TV, and we need to convince them that they will be safe, that there are no threats, nothing wrong will happen for Poland if the opposition wins, because they are frightened that something wrong will happen to Poland if Law and Justice Party loses the election. So we want to mobilize also the voters who are not mobilized, so young people, women. This is our daily work. Adam, you've got 30 seconds. Do you know why it is so important to mobilize young people? To answer your question, because even when we speak to people in the streets. The only motivation that can change the motivation on voting by a senior person is to engage his or her grandchild. These young people should convince the grandparents to take part in the election to change their future. So every vote matters. We need to involve as many people as possible. So our time is up. And we received the message we need to close the panel, so thank you very much for taking part in our meeting. I just wanted to say that we would like to thank Oliwia, Sebastian and Antonina for being with us. We created this space for them during campus, and when I consider the list, I think that there are several dozens of young people who took part in campus, decided to be candidates. So vote for young people. The only thing you can do, if you just want to do one thing, vote for young people. Thank you.
It's not always easy to recognize. It may look like this, or like this. It may be a burden, but it is a responsibility that we embrace nonetheless. But if it means this for one person and this for someone else, maybe it ultimately means being there for one another. It isn't handed to us, but we know where to find it and how it feels, how it tastes, and what it sounds like when we finally have it. It means different things to different people, but for many, it means everything. And if we all fight for it, it will eventually bring us together.
Jestem z zawodu lekarzem, zajmowała się diagnostyką chorób nowotworowych.
W Białorusi zajmowałam się mikrobiologią i molekularną biologią.
Byłem nauczycielem szkoły podstawowej.
Naszym celem jest budowanie umiejętności, które są ważne na polskim rynku pracy.
Szybko nabierają takiej pewności siebie, bardzo szybko się uczą.
Wszystko możliwe, kiedy starasz się.
Każdy wybór ma swoje konsekwencje.
Dziś na kazaniu o takich jak ty mówili, że to morderczynie.
A wiesz, że ta, która ci pomogła, trafi za kraty?
Trzeba mieć sumienie.
Jak mogłaś to zrobić własnej matce?
Aborcja to najgorsza zbrodnia.
Gdybym ja podjęła taką decyzję, nie byłoby cię tutaj.
Organy państwa nie będą przyglądać się temu obojętnie.
Życie i zdrowie kobiety jest najważniejsze.
Stop kryminalizacji aborcji.
Kobieta decyduje.
Dzień dobry. To znaczy, myśmy się dzisiaj widzieli. Wie pan co? Ja zmieniłem zdanie i chciałbym poprawić. Karty. W urnie. Dobrze? To ja sobie poszukam.
Serio? Pan sobie poszuka? Nadchodzące wybory są zbyt ważne, by zostawić je bez kontroli. Dołącz do obywatelskiej kontroli wyborów. Zróbmy wybory bez PiS-u.